Alright, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Star Wars Mark of Balance. My name is Mark, and today we're going to be talking about the Acolyte Episode 5, Night. And this week's episode actually had some really solid action and lightsaber combat choreography. I think it's some of the best we've seen in Disney live-action Star Wars. And hey, look, Star Wars can kill characters again. How great is that? That's 1 point Acolyte. All of this, however, does not excuse the lazy and convenience-filled writing that still plagues this episode. It doesn't excuse the lack of character development that we got in the previous episodes to make the deaths in this episode feel significant. This lack of character building bleeds into the lack of chemistry that May and Osha have. This started when I talked about it in the flashback episode. The child counterparts of these characters didn't have chemistry, and now when they're grown up, they still don't have chemistry. This is probably coming from the fact that Amanda Lestenberg is talking to a body double in every one of their scenes, and there's no way to really feel that connection of the character because it's obviously shot in a very uncreative way. And it's unfortunate because we've seen shows and movies pull it off where they have one actor portray multiple characters and they share scenes together, and it still feels like there's two different characters talking to each other. That's not the case here with Osha and May. And finally, another testament to the show's very heavy-handed writing and lack of subtlety. The big reveal of the Master is not a big reveal at all because everyone knew who it was going to be. So for a show marketed as a mystery, it wasn't much of a mystery, so it failed in that respect. I know some people will say, oh, well, the real mystery is what happened on Brandok 16 years ago. And again, because the writing is so heavy-handed and we're constantly reminded by all the characters that Sol did something wrong. Every episode, he reminds us that he needs to talk to Osha, he needs to tell her what happened, and we keep delaying it. So even though we don't know exactly what happened, I don't think the reveal of what happened is going to live up to this grand mystery that they've been building because they've been so in our face about how guilty Sol is. And I'll bring up some more examples in this episode that reinforce that point of unnecessary, over-the-top dialogue that lacks subtlety, that pretty much ruins their own mystery that they're trying to build up. Now, I'm not very good at commentating on action, but all I'll say about the fight choreography in this episode and why I think it works so well is that it had momentum, it had weight, but it also had fluidity to it. I think the problem with a lot of the duels in the sequel trilogy is that they made these lightsabers feel too weighty, like they were swinging axes instead of what we saw in the prequels, where it was much more fluid and everything felt like the warriors we're seeing had mastered their craft. And that's what I liked about the choreography here. We have hand-to-hand combat, we have lightsaber combat, we have some force tricks used within combat, and we have some creative kills that didn't feel cheap or unearned. I mean, the Yord one I'll talk about a little bit more. But when the villain killed someone, it was like, oh, he outsmarted them. That looked good. I mean, the two Jedi got skewered together. I mean, that was pretty brutal. So yeah, that's really all I have to say about action. I think action's important, but I think at the end of the day, action is only there to accentuate the conflicts between characters. Action shouldn't be carrying a Star Wars show. Star Wars has had action, and of course, the big explosions, the big fights are the reason that some people watch, and that's totally fine. But the reason Star Wars has survived for this many years is that the characters are strong, the themes are poignant, and the Acolyte outside of the action shown in this show does not fulfill all of those other things that I'm talking about. So we can stand here and say that the action was great, and that's perfectly fine. And if people really like the action and that's what they're here for with Star Wars, that's great. But at the end of the day, you can't have action carry Star Wars. And so while I like the action in this episode, it doesn't blow me away. It doesn't make me more excited about the Acolyte. It simply just entertained me more than the previous couple episodes, which I can't say was a very high bar to start with. So now that I've given the Acolyte its flowers, it's time for me to jump back into our regularly scheduled programming of me criticizing the lazy, convenience-filled writing, the bad dialogue, and the overall structuring of this story. And I think I'll start there with the structure. Last week, we ended on a very manipulative cliffhanger. Some people liked that cliffhanger. A lot of other people criticized it, rightfully so, for being purposely cut short so you have to come back next week to watch. Not because you're excited for episode 5, but because you feel shortchanged in episode 4. The writer, which I think is not a great idea to do, went on Twitter to try to explain some of the criticisms that the show has been getting. And they specifically said They had to split episodes 4 and 5 up, and when we watch them, we will get why they had to do that. And guess what? They didn't have to do it. They simply did it for 2 reasons. One, because it got an extra week of Disney Plus subscriptions, because if you leave off on that cliffhanger, people are more likely to come back the next week to watch. And number 2 was they were lazy in the way that they framed the fight going into this week. Last week, we saw the Master push all of the Jedi backwards. This week, we open, and the Jedi are inexplicably spread out over like 100-yard radius. Master Soul was on the other side of the forest. Jackie was on the other corner of the forest, and she comes out of nowhere to fight May. And then the other groups of Jedi are all clustered around the Master. We don't know how the Jedi got split up, but the reason that they cut was because they didn't know either. The creators didn't think this out thoroughly, so they simply ended on a cliffhanger last week so that when they started this week, they could just drop us into the action and we don't have to think about the logistics of, well, hold on, how did Saul get all the way over there? And why is Jackie over there? Oh, because they want the Master to be separate and have a showdown with Soul, so they have to send him all the way off screen, even though we know that the Master didn't push Master Soul that far. And also, we need another fight. Oh, okay, so we could have Jackie start all the way over here, and she'll fight May. That'll work. So while all the action here is good, it's built on a very flimsy foundation of lazy writing that has no logistical sense to it. I hope that made sense, but to boil it down, there's no reason that Soul should have been over there, Jackie should have been over there. All of the Jedi should have remained clustered in that area where he pushed them, but they needed to have dialogue between just Soul and just the Master, and if they were all in the same room, it would have been difficult because there was other Jedi around, so then they would have had to have the Master kill all the other Jedi so that he was just facing off against Soul, but then they wouldn't have those emotional deaths of Yord and Jackie later on and having their heroic sacrifices of Jackie taking off his helmet and Yord stopping the Master from killing May. So that's my rant on the framing of this entire fight, even though the choreography was good. Since I'm talking about the Master a lot, we can dive into Quimir and the big reveal of who the Master is. And of course, it was Quimir. The script had told us that essentially from episode 3. And I'll give the show some credit because they tried to plant some seeds that would make the audience think it was Mother Coral because Soul says, "You're familiar." And then in one of the next scenes, Osha says, "Oh, he controlled your mind? My mother was able to do that." So then that makes the audience go, oh, well, maybe it is the mother. So I can give some props there to the Acolyte, but at the end of the day, it was just damage control because I think they knew they had showed their hand a little too early. So Quimir, I think the change in the actor's portrayal, Manny Jacinto's portrayal of the character was great. He kind of slips in and out of the serious and the more jokey side to the character, and I think there was a lot of inspiration with the Joker. I feel like in some scenes I was like, this is very Heath Ledger-esque. And I think the design of his character, the sleeveless tunic, is always a great look for a Sith, especially when you're that ripped. And they did a good job of having him real sweaty, so he looked real intense. I think that was all really good. Now let's get into the motivations of Quimir. So he essentially says he's revealed himself because he wants to be free. He doesn't want to be policed by the Jedi. He wants to use his powers freely. Now, do I think revealing himself and taking an Acolyte is counterintuitive to him trying to live free and undetected by the Jedi? Yeah, I think that's a little stupid. And they try and make a joke like, well, I wore a mask. I'm like, okay, I get it. That's kind of what the character would say. But my guess is that he wants to become more powerful, and so he has to bring along an apprentice so that he could essentially train someone that could kill Master Jedi so that when he wants to destroy whoever the Sith Master is at this time, he will have a worthy Acolyte, and that's the ultimate freedom. He wants ultimate power with the Sith, and he also wants to eradicate the Jedi so that he can continue to take as much power as he'd like. Very anarchistic view, again, kind of drawing on the Joker. Now, Quimir and Master Soul exchange a lot of words in this fight. I think it's very clear that Quimir was likely at the disaster 16 years ago and witnessed what happened between Osha, May, and the Jedi. Maybe he just heard through May, but I think it's more likely that he was there. We get some more heavy-handed, in-your-face dialogue where Master Soul's like, take off your mask. Who teaches a Padawan without showing their face? So then Quimir is set up to then say, well, maybe you should look in the mirror and think about what you've done in the past. Again, just driving this point home to a bitter end that Soul did something bad If you missed it, everyone, Soul did something bad. He brings it up again at the end of the fight when he says, I accept my darkness, what about you? Or something along those lines. I don't entirely agree with this assessment of the dark side and how it works. Comier doesn't accept his dark side, he embraces his dark side, and there's a difference. Accepting your dark side is what Qui-Gon Jinn and Yoda do to transcend the living force and become one with the cosmic force, and that's how they become force ghosts. There's a whole arc at the end of Clone Wars where Yoda learns to accept his dark side. Embracing your dark side is more what Maul does, where he wants revenge, he embraces it, and that is his sole focus. He wants revenge against Obi-Wan, and that's the only thing that fuels him. That's embracing your darkness and using it to make yourself more powerful. Accepting your darkness is more of a Jedi concept, and the idea that you're at balance when you accept the darkness within you. That is true balance. True balance isn't getting rid of all the dark side within you, because that's not possible. Everyone has selfishness and selflessness inside them. And it's your choice whether to embrace your light side or embrace your dark side. But if you're accepting both sides, that's a good thing. So I don't entirely agree with this line by Comier. I think it's a more Jedi-like thing to say than a Sith-like thing to say. Some may say that's semantics, but words are important, people. And speaking of the Sith, I didn't love the reveal of Comier saying that he's a Sith. He's kind of like, you would call me Sith, and Master Soul just brushes it off, doesn't really acknowledge it. And a lot of people will say, oh, well, it's because the Jedi are complacent. They haven't seen the Sith in 1,000 years or however long it's been at this point. Why would they believe that he's a Sith or even believe that the Sith still exist? But after what you've just seen, where this guy has killed 5 Jedi right in front of his face and uses the Force with great proficiency and is wielding a red lightsaber, I think that would ring some alarm bells in Soul's head, where he's like, wow, those stories that they used to tell me as a Padawan about the Sith and the Sith Empire from back in the day. We'll see how Master Soul reacts next week, and if he tells the Council right away or tells Vernestra, I don't know. We'll see where that goes, but I feel like the return of the Sith should have been more, I don't know, ceremonious, if that makes sense. So yeah, Comier kills a lot of Jedi. He kills named characters, some rando Jedi, and that's really great for Star Wars. It's good when there's stakes in Star Wars. Jecki dying, that was, I liked Jecki enough. I think she could have been way better as a character. Yord, I never liked as a character. Again, I think there was opportunities to make him likable or make him interesting, but they just didn't take any time to develop any of these characters aside from Soul. So these deaths feel very flat. Just outside of shock value, there wasn't much connection with them. And all of those things that a lot of people have been criticizing for the past couple weeks about, we should take time to learn about these characters, this will pay off in the end. And people said, oh, we have to wait to get to the good part. But now that the, I guess, quote unquote, good part has come, all of the things have come true. The lack of character has made these deaths feel insignificant, really, when these should have hit a lot harder, because these are named main characters of the series. And speaking about developing characters and chemistry between the characters, we end the episode with May and Osha having this heart-to-heart, I guess, but the way they've characterized these two sisters has been so jumbled and confusing over the past couple weeks, where last week Osha wanted nothing to do with going on this mission, and now she's gung-ho on bringing May in, and she's like, you're coming with me, you're under arrest for the murder of all these Jedi, you're a bad person. And May last week said in the middle of the Force when she does her 180 that, oh, this mission's stupid. Now that my sister's alive, that's all that I care about. But it seems like she's still very much on her mission to kill all the Jedi and get her revenge. Maybe we say, oh, well, she's not doing it the way the Master wanted, so that's what she turned her back on. And again, it just feels weird and confusing as character motivations. And like I said in the beginning, this scene just doesn't hit that hard because we know that they're talking to a body double because of the way they shoot the scene. It's like back, forth. And it's so uninteresting, and there's no tangible emotions because you're taken out of the scene. Your suspension of disbelief just isn't there anymore because you're like, yeah, Amanda is obviously not talking to herself here. So there's that missing piece in the relationship that I think is crucial, on top of the fact that when they were kids, there was no chemistry between them. And that brings us to the really bad, lazy writing choices in this episode. May picks up a lightsaber, singes off her braids to look more like Osha, dresses up like Osha, and in the next scene, her hair looks perfect. It looks exactly like Osha's hair. There's no singeing. There's no burnt hair smell. She just gets on the ship with Sol. No problem. Master Jedi with no sense of awareness. It would have made 10 times more sense if she just used one of the daggers we see her keep using to cut off her hair more cleanly. At least at that point, there wouldn't be burnt ends on her hair. But nope. This is just peak lazy writing where they're like, how do we get May and Osha to switch sides? How about we just use a lightsaber to cut off her hair because that'll look pretty cool. Yeah, let's do that. The audience won't care. Let's insult their intelligence. I just don't know how this got past the writer's room and why no one in quality control was like, hold on a second. We just had her cut off her hair with a lightsaber and now her hair looks perfect and no one's going to notice that. I don't know. This was bad. I don't know. Maybe Sol's just going along with it and playing dumb. Who knows? But yeah, kind of like I predicted last week, Osha is now with the Master and May is with Master Sol. Pretty much the most predictable mystery show ever. And my final point of criticism that I know I'm going to get crap for, but I don't care because I think it's a valid criticism. I love animals, and these bugs were shown to be nocturnal. They were clearly dormant during the day. Osha wakes them up, and that's why they're all pissed. Why would a nocturnal animal be attracted to light? Isn't it in the name that they avoid light actively? When you go into a cave and you shine a light at a bat, it doesn't go, oh, pretty light. It goes, oh my God, I can't see anymore. I mean, biologically, this doesn't make any sense. And I think this is a valid criticism because, again, I think it just feeds into the lazy writing and convenience writing choices. We need to get the Master and all the Jedi away from each other without killing any one of our main characters that are left. How can we do that? Oh, well, we planted the seed last week. We showed that the bugs are aggressive. Oh, okay, let's do that. Let's do a swarm of those bugs. And how can we get them to specifically attack the Master? Well, we can make it attracted to light. But didn't we just say that they were nocturnal? They weren't. No. We need to get the Master away from everyone. Stop thinking. Just do it. A lot of you people will probably say, well, Mark, the Purgle live in the vacuum of space and can jump into light speed. And to that I say, yeah, but they look cool and it makes sense because it's more Star Wars-y. These big bugs are just Earth bugs, so they should follow the same rules as Earth bugs. Yeah. How do you like that response? Huh? I know this is kind of coming off as a joke, but I do think I have a valid point here, and I want to go to my nearest biologist and say, would a nocturnal animal be attracted to light? What would you say, Dr. Whatever? I would love it if more people had this criticism, and I hope they're out there. I'm going to find them. But anyway, I think that's all I have for this episode. Like I said in the beginning, the action is really good to great at some moments, but action can't save shows if there's no connection to the characters, to the plot, to the conflicts between the characters. The mystery has not been a mystery at all. It's been very predictable so far, and I don't see that changing unless they have a really big twist that is coming. We'll see. I think all the issues that were present in the previous episodes of The Acolyte are still here and on full display. It's just now there's a pretty coating of action and paint on the front of it to distract you. So thank you so much for listening. Leave a review on whatever streaming service you're listening to this podcast on. Follow me over on Instagram at @star_wars_mark of balance. We just passed 400 followers. Thank you guys so much for the support. It's unfortunate that the page is doing really well because of my criticism of bad Star Wars. I wish it was for me praising Star Wars and how good it is and what a good state of the union it is for Star Wars, but unfortunately it's not. But I still feel what I'm talking about is valuable. I think it's important to keep Disney accountable, and I appreciate all you guys listening to what I have to say, digesting it, and understanding that it's coming from a place of love and respect for the story and the universe. And I just want the best Star Wars that we could possibly get. And unfortunately with The Acolyte, I don't think that's what we're getting. And I want to be that change, or part of that change at least. So thank you again for listening. As always, stay safe, stay healthy, and may the Force be with you. Peace.